episode 65 of This and That and What the Fuck Else. In this one, I will be talking about the pestilence and a few snippets from the EU and the gender confusion, and then there's protests and more on the sanctions and things from the Ukraine. And then there's another sickening what the fuck at the end of it. But the world has gone crazy. As I said earlier in my live stream, the world has really gone crazy. It seems to me that there's a lot of people that are completely ignorant of what is actually happening. We have now again the Ukrainians starting with the same bloody nonsense that they did in that city close to Kyiv. Same story, that one where the Russians pulled out, and then there was a long story about all the things that were supposedly to happen there. Same shit they tried near Mariupol, they're now doing it in Izium. And from what I have read on the channels, it would appear that the graves that they are now displaying, so-called mass graves or what, was Ukrainian soldiers that the Ukrainian army left behind when the Russians drove them out of Izium, and the Ukrainians didn't want those bodies, so the Russians buried it. But in any case, we'll see. The mainstream media is going to spin this like hell, and Zelensky will be in the choir singing the songs. I am so, as in plain Boere Afrikaans, gatvol for all that shit in the Ukraine. That Zelensky is a Zazi and nobody should listen to what he says. Leave alone, give him so much money. But the West has got a mission there. And I've said it in previous Skidmarks. NATO and America cannot afford to lose in the Ukraine, and they will do anything to win. But let's go. And the first one is about the pestilence, and it is from South Africa. Government to destroy 8.5 million Pfizer jabs at $10 a pop. That is 148 million rand. 148 million. 750,000 down the shithole. Well done, South African government. And that is how they can piss money out, and then they plead poverty. And then we get to the EU, and there's not much of a story, it's more of a picture. Look at that shit there. All those women dressed in Ukrainian colors. Well, I have said it previously. Europeans just have to accept that it is now the EU is the old USSR light. And those people that you're looking at there, that's your Politburo. None of them has ever been elected. And then there's a response on that. They look like a bunch of washed up air hostesses from a budget airline about to go bust. And I can't agree more. And then there's this one. These girls allowed have really nailed their colors to the mast, unashamedly supporting the most corrupt and oppressive regime in Europe, which shows no mercy to its own citizens in this conflict, which it could have prevented. But words like that will fall on deaf ears. And then I've got this little gender gem. You must look at it and then just look at the picture and go puke and then come back and continue with the show. That's so perverted. Man tries to breastfeed newborn. What the actual fuck is that? A man trying to breastfeed. But I've made peace with it. There are people amongst us that are totally brain dead, and they are so confused and mentally corrupted. They should actually be in institutions, not walking freely. What fucking making videos about their antics. And then we get to protests. And this one is in France. Yellow vest protests return to Paris amid rising inflation. Over 100 yellow vest protesters descended on the on the Place de la République in Paris, protesting against rising inflation. Police responded quickly as demonstrators damaged street furniture and set fire to trash bins. And there you can see in the picture, you can see that police force. That is the WEF shock troops with which they are going to control Europe. That guy from Germany, Schulz, has already said that from the 1st of October, these type of people will be deployed to the streets to contain violence. And then there's this from Austria. Open Nord Stream. Protesters rally against rising energy costs in Austria. Thousands of protesters took the streets of Vienna to rally against rising energy prices, inflation and anti-Russia sanctions. But it's going to help them for all to be in the streets like that. They should have learned from the pestilence, all their marching means nothing. And then we're in Russia. Russia will not mirror Western visa restrictions, President Putin. The Russian leader said that Moscow is not in the business of doing anything that violates our interests during the Eastern Economic Forum thing. We are interested in seeing young people come here. We are interested in seeing business come to our country, despite any restrictions. There are many people who love Russia, trust Russia and are ready to work here, Putin said. And that is true. And I've seen many messages now of people trying to find out what does it entail to get into Russia. And then we get to the sanctions. Now Russia begins to turn the screw. Moscow has stated that gas supplies to Europe will not resume in full until the West lifts sanctions on Russia. Now that is from the Sirius report, but that is not completely true from what I have gathered. From what I've read, they refer to sanctions on pipeline equipment and gas export and things like that, not all the sanctions. Italy's Salvini says sanctions against Russia has failed. Several months have passed and people are paying 2, 3, even 4 times more for their bills, and after 7 months the war continues and the Russian Federation coffers are filling with money. Now that's one thing for him to say, make a statement like that to the press, but then he gets to where he must make decisions and he talks a different story. Baltic countries will restrict cross-border movement of Russian citizens. Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia have reached an agreement in principle on restricting the movement of Russians across Russian-Belarusian borders into the EU, the Latvian Foreign Ministry said. Those Baltic states are really looking for shit, and I don't know what they think they can gain out of their attitude, because I see they've brought out all other types of shit. Russian language are being prohibited and people are fined for speaking Russian and for singing Russian folk songs. They are lining themselves up to be recalibrated. Finland's Marin Sana tells European Parliament that sanctions must be reflected in the everyday lives of ordinary Russians. This amounts to collective punishment against a race of people and is classified as a crime in the UN Charter. EU is okay with this, and that is the truth. And this woman, I'm just laughing, she was the one that started crying when social media showed all those videos of her drunken party dancing and so forth. But look, she wants to punish the Russian citizens. You know, Sweden is about 1.7 million people. Not Sweden, Finland. I don't know what is going to happen there, but they are looking for shit. And now with all the things that is happening in the East, and with Erdogan being amidst many of those things there, and obviously tightening up relations with Russia and all those the Asian countries in his vicinity, I wonder how long he's going to stay in in NATO, and I wonder if I don't think he's going to approve Finland and Sweden entering NATO. The Kyiv Gestapo brown shirt military conducted a raid on 427 nightclubs and apparently handed in as many as 119 summonses. The remaining several thousand visitors of military age were not subject to conscription due to connections and thick wallets. And this is what they are doing in Kyiv now. And this post there was a few interesting answers on the responses to that. This guy says, aha, imagine going from clubbing in Kyiv to being tossed into the meat grinders in Kherson and Donbas. Don't feel sorry for them at all. And then Michael Murphy says, cannon fodder. And this one says, what a life, thanks to Comrade Putin and Lavrov for not bombing that city to the ground. Discos, girls party all the time thinking not that it's a war zone. And this guy says, searching fresh meat. And then this guy says, like, who want to go to the slaughterhouse because that's what it is. Yeah, now the guys, the people, but the population of Ukraine, they're taking that shit, so they must eat it. And this guy says, searching fresh meat. And this guy says, of course, they need more fodder. Like, who wants to go to the slaughterhouse because that is what it is. And then this oak says, yeah, the party is over for someone. And then I've got Garland Nixon. Biden, Newland and company have used the Ukrainian ultra-nationalist hatred of Russia to manipulate them into throwing their entire nation into a meat grinder on behalf of an absurd doomed Newcon project. Hate is a poison that kills its owner. And I like Garland. He's coming out with really sharp things lately. And I heard the rumors that he has been chastised by Twitter already. And then this little map is just something interesting, and that was about that bombing of the electricity network. The Russian military is reported to have destroyed 50% of Ukraine's energy infrastructure within 2.5 hours. That was a serious shot. Ukraine suffers massive blackout after Russian strikes. Multiple regions of southeastern Ukraine suffered electricity shortages and blackouts late on Sunday. President Vladimir Zelensky said the cause was missile attacks by Moscow on critical infrastructure. So far, Moscow has remained silent on the matter, neither confirming nor denying its involvement. Still, the incident has been preceded by the reported launch of multiple cruise missiles from Russian ships in the Black Sea. And then we get this. The West is riddled with hypocrisy and double standards. The grain deal to save the starving countries was signed almost 2 months ago, yet almost all the grain went to the EU. The West first imposes sanctions, now throws tantrums on the crisis it has provoked. And they're trying to put the blame, no, they're not trying to put the blame, they're denying this. And they say that the Russians are lying when they say this. But I've seen on the Telegram channels and so there's copies of the ships' documents that shows clearly where those ships went. And then there's this from the US. Facebook spied on private messages of Americans who questioned the 2020 election and handed them over to the FBI without a warrant or subpoena. How the fuck does that happen in America? And the Americans take this. That country, those people there will have to do something serious. Because that, I mean, look at that. This is what that fucker did in Canada too. And then there's this little snippet. The mighty South African G5. Those who were on the receiving end of this gun on Ops Hooper, Packer, Modular and Displace will never forget it. And I must agree, that was a monster of a gun. But those were the days. And then we get to that, what a fuck man. And you really have to, you'll have to agree. It is, what the fuck is this? The satanic nature of the Biden administration gets more overt by the day. The person the administration refers to as its monkeypox coordinator is a person called Dmitry Daskalikas, who tattoos pentagrams on his chest and wears pentagram-shaped leather harnesses. And look at those images. That Biden administration is a sick fucking cesspit. And we have to just accept it. Because the Americans, the American population, the public is accepting that. I'm going to get into trouble if I continue as this one. I can just say, what the fuck is that? Look at that man. But in any case, Biden doesn't surprise me at all anymore. And on that note, please hit the like, and the subscribe, and share the thing, and have a great day.